Haru is a chaotic troublemaker who spends his days beating people up and terrifying the whole school. However, his attitude takes a wild turn when the school's coldest nerdy girl accidentally makes him fall in love with her. Now, he will try to behave with the purpose of win her over and hopefully make her his girlfriend. At the start of the school year, Shizuku is made to sit next to Haru, who never comes to school. It turns out the guy beat up some seniors so badly on the first day of school that their blood still stained the wall.
Damn.
The fight got him suspended, but Shizuku didn't give a damn since she simply wanted to focus on her studies so she wouldn't have to strip for degenerate uncles on OnlyFans.
Women.
That day, the teacher makes her deliver some handouts to Haru at home, and she gets terrified seeing how violent the guy is. But the moment the guy hears she's from school, he escapes immediately.
Okay.
She drops the handouts inside and leaves to go home, only to be assaulted by Haru on her way home. Haru asks if she was there to force him to return to school, but after confirming that she just came to drop off some documents, Bro immediately switches up and starts blushing, even referring to her as his friend. However, she gets weirded out and goes back to school. When the teacher hears that Haru was friendly towards Shizuku, she asks her to convince him to return to school. However, Shizuku refuses and tells her to clean up her own mess since the guy creeps her out. On her way home that day, she gets pulled into an alley and Haru threatens to stick it in if she screams. Later, they chill awkwardly at a restaurant with Haru's friends. Here, Shizuku watches as his so-called friends extort him for cash. Once they leave, Haru dramatically asks if school has been fun and if she enjoys her friend's company. In response, she tells him to just go if he misses school so much, but he replies that he's scared because everyone is terrified of him. He adds that he doesn't really need school now that he has friends that aren't scared of him. But Shizuku tells him they are using him for his money and aren't real friends. In anger, he dumps all his drink on her head and calls her a terrible person before walking away, leaving Shizuku totally stunned for a bit until she retaliates by tossing her drink at him, after which she runs for her life. The following day, the teacher informs Shizuku that Haru would be expelled if he keeps skipping school, so she goes to his place to deliver the message to his guardian. Before she can leave, the manager asks her to have a go at the batting range. While she tries and fails miserably, she hears Haru's friends talking about how they plan to ditch him because he doesn't give them money anymore. Just then, she notices Haru listening to them while looking like a neglected, rain-soaked puppy, but she ignores his sad state and leaves. However, she gets too infuriated to leave, so she walks up to the losers and, despite being scared, she asks them to be honest with Haru. As one of them makes an attempt to harm her, Haru suddenly grabs him and asks them all to leave. On her way home, Haru follows behind without saying a word, but the moment she turns, he starts crying. Seeing him cry melts her ice-cold heart, and she hugs him earnestly. He then promises to come to school because of her, but then he ruins the moment by saying he likes her. She tries to play it off, but he gets more specific that she makes his little dragon rise, leaving her utterly shocked. The following day, Haru stands by the gate shaking nervously like a 100-year-old dishwasher until he sees Shizuku. For the next few weeks, he starts to glue himself to Shizuku like a puppy desperate for love, and does weird things to get her attention. Thanks to him constantly bugging her, Shizuku finds it hard to study. While trying to catch up with her studies after school, he asks her to accompany him to a new food cafe. However, she says she has no time to goof around because she needs to get back at the guy who took her position of the highest score. Just then, Haru actually pays attention to the problem she's solving and helps her solve it without any effort. At the moment, it dawned on her that the student who beat her score was actually him. The following day, she arrives at school with heavy eye bags and starts avoiding him. He tries to tell her she doesn't need to study, but this only makes her more annoyed. Later, while she pours her frustration out on the poor fence, she gets kidnapped. When Haru notices she isn't in class, he interrogates everyone to find her. Meanwhile, Shizuku, who was kidnapped by Haru's enemies, doesn't even ask why she was there and simply uses the opportunity to study. Just then, Haru bursts in like a savior, visibly angry. Shizuku tries to calm him down, but Bro's rage mode makes him smack her away without realizing it. As she falls down bleeding, he starts beating up his seniors. At that moment, Shizuku angrily announces that their friendship is over because he's a loose cannon who is wasting her time. Haru actually gets the memo, so he starts sulking and lets her concentrate on her books. By midterm, Shizuku scores the highest on the test, but she doesn't even have a hint of happiness. She then visits Haru and thanks him for saving her in the past. When he asks if she hates him, she says she doesn't, and after making up, he becomes more considerate and actually lets her study because it seems to make her happy. When she realizes how changed he has become, she also takes a break to visit the Monya Cafe just to make him happy. Out of the blue, he suddenly kisses her, leaving her red-hot and embarrassed. But he simply opens his romance guide and says his heart isn't pounding like the book said it would. Later, while helping out in her dad's store, she thinks about the past when she didn't care about anyone and solely focused on her grades, but now she has been changing. In school that day, the scared teacher stays far away from Haru, as she informs him he'd have to take a makeup test because he didn't write his name on any of the sheets. While he complains that he won't take the test because Shizuku isn't joining him, Shizuku scans through his test sheets and realizes he would have scored higher than her if it had counted. Just then, a rooster pops out of Haru's shirt. And when Shizuku gives him a death glare, he jumps out the window with his rooster buddy called Messy. Later, Haru comes to bug her as usual, but seeing his face so close makes her remember the kiss, so she freaks out. With this, she finally accepts that she might be in love with him. So while walking home that day, she asks if he seriously loves her. He says he'd crack her with a straight face, and just as she starts processing what he said, a girl calls her name and trips on a garbage can behind them. They then go to a cafe where she introduces herself as Asako. She reveals that she has to pass the makeup midterm test because failing it would mean attending a remedial class, which would interfere with her hangout. She begs Shizuku to help her study, but she and Haru take one glance at her horrible test sheets and realize she is beyond saving. Shizuku tells her no, adding that her problems don't concern her, and as they leave, she tries to chase after them, only to puke all the food she ate. When they ask why she was overeating earlier, she explains that she ate a lot so that boys won't be attracted to her, and so girls won't hate her for being too beautiful. To convince Shizuku, she even shows her the online community where she booked the hangout, and says they are her first friends, so she can't miss it. Although ice-cold Shizuku still turns her down, Haru is intrigued, and volunteers to help her study only if she takes him to her hangout. She excitedly agrees, but asks him not to mistakenly fall for her charms, and Haru assures her that Ogre Fiona has more charms than her. When they actually start studying, Haru soon realizes that Asako's head might be filled with sand instead of brains. As Shizuku watches Haru try and fail at teaching the dumb girl, she is simply glad Asako's presence was distracting her from her feelings. She then steps outside to think about her feelings while chilling with Rooster Messy, but after a while, Haru shows up looking for Asako. When she asks how everything is going, Haru tells her not to steal his job. She responds that she doesn't care, and asks why he desperately wants to attend the hangout. When she asks why they care if people like them, Haru explains that he sometimes feels numb and empty inside. He even adds how he used to be scared, but now his life has changed since he met her. All these deep feelings make Shizuku confused, since she doesn't usually care about things, and over the next few days, she finds it difficult to concentrate whenever she studies. Just then, a random classmate called Sohei shows up and asks how she managed to make Haru come to school, but she gives a dry reply. When he reveals that he attended the same school as Haru, who never attended class for 3 years, this freaks her out, and he adds that she must be special to him. Later that afternoon, Haru and the teacher were fighting about what to do with Rooster Messy after it shat on her head. Meanwhile, Shizuku finds the airhead Asako looking like Dracula drained her life force. When Shizuku asks if she was studying well, the delusional girl said she just wanted to play with her online friends instead of studying. When Shizuku tries to scold Asako, she guilt-trips Shizuku by saying smart people won't understand how hard it is to study. When she adds that she simply wants to make friends and not be lonely, Shizuku decides to help her by picking out important topics to focus on, so she and Haru can go to the hangout. Since the makeup test was the following day, Shizuku spends all day teaching her, and luckily Asako passes the test the following day. A few days later, Asako comes to complain about how Haru ruined the hangout by fighting with the boys and rizzing the girls. Just then, the teacher also came to complain about Rooster Messy. Later that day on the roof, Shizuku finally gets some peace and quiet away from Haru and Asako. Soon, Haru finds her sleeping, and when she wakes up, she tries to get away from him, but he makes her stay put. As she relaxes under the blue sky, she realizes it was the first time she was skipping class. She then tells Haru how glad she is for meeting him, because now she doesn't just care about studying, and now enjoys life. She also tells him she loves him and thanks him for changing her world. Just then, her face turns into Kevin De Bruyne's face after playing 90 minutes in the sun as she realizes what she has just said and wonders what Haru thinks. To her surprise, he doesn't give a wild reaction, and he asks her out. Her brain turns to sludge for a while before she insists that she was joking, and this shocks Haru. After this, they head to the class, and Sohei says he can't keep the chicken at his house. Just then, Saiko meets them with the chicken, and they pressure her into getting permission to keep it at the school. They all agree to take care of it, and Asako calls a meeting to figure out what they'll need to set up the chicken coop. While brainstorming, they agree to meet during the weekend to shop, and Haru is excited to spend the weekend with them. While Asako thinks about a headquarters for their meetings, Shizuku recalls her confession to Haru, and her mood goes down the drain. She wonders if she should have been honest about her feelings for him, and Haru notices that she's lost in thought. On the day of their outing, Asako gets to the store early, and she is surprised to meet Sohei there. After explaining that he got out of practice on time, the two head inside to wait for the others and see a bum taking cash from Misawa. After this, Sohei casually greets Misawa, and Asako is surprised that Sohei knows him. He then introduces her to Misawa and says he comes there all the time. While he heads to the baseball area, Asako scolds Misawa for lending money to a stranger, and Haru walks in. Following this, Sohei shows Asako how to hold the baseball bat, and Shizuku suddenly busts into the store, apologizing for being late. She then explains that her brother broke her alarm clock, and they wonder if she stole her drip from a nursing home. Shortly after, Asako gets into a fight with Haru about the chicken coop, since he wants one that's above their budget, and the other two decide to leave them to search for materials to build a coop. coop. While doing this, Shizuku runs into Kenji and his gang, and he says he wants to talk with her. Right then, Sohei meets them and immediately sends one of them to the unconscious dimension before running away with Shizuku. She thought he was going to recreate Mortal Kombat with them, but he says he's never been in a fight, and he soon notices that snails move faster than Shizuku. Before they can catch up to her, he summons Haru, and he lifts one of them as he weighs -5 kilograms, and this scares the rest of them. He then uses the dude as a human javelin, and they rush out of the store. After getting to a safe distance, Sohei fills Asako in on what happened and tells her to get the stuff they'll need. He then decides to meet her to help out and tells Haru to watch over Shizuku before leaving. He then gets some beverages for them, and Shizuku says she's surprised that he sent the dude flying with one arm. Just then, she gets nervous since she rejected him before, and he says she's been acting weird recently since she agreed to take care of the chicken with them. He asks if she's okay, and she's surprised that he noticed something was off with her. In response, she says she's okay, but he doesn't believe her and decides to take her word for it. She gets flattered that he's worrying about her, and just then, the others join them, making her sad since they ruined her moment. Later on, they realize that cutting the wood is more difficult than they expected, and Shizuku says they should have cut it at the store. Sohei then feels that they can't build the coop by themselves, and Asako says that she found the simplest method to build the coop. Seeing them struggle to cut the wood, Misawa lets them know that he has a chainsaw, and Haru loses his mind since he could have mentioned it earlier. While he gets it, Asako decides to get some snacks for them, and Kenji soon sneaks up on Shizuku, scaring her soul out of her body. Before they activate their fight or flight domain expansion, Kenji tells them to chill out and he just wants to talk. He then reveals that he feels bad since Haru is ignoring him, and Sohei advises him to apologize, and Shizuku lets them know that they shouldn't expect him to relate to them since they hurt him. However, she says they can offer an apology as long as it doesn't interfere with their work, and they realize that she's colder than Rukia's Bankai. Just then, Kenji figures that she likes Haru, making her freak out, and while she denies it, Haru meets them. Before he can turn into the Hulk, Kenji explains that he wants to make peace, holding Shizuku close to him, and this triggers the Mike Tyson and Haru. To convince Haru, Shizuku says they're here to help with the coop as proof of their truce, and the airhead immediately believes her, making Kenji wonder why she likes the dummy. Just then, Asako joins them, and she's surprised to see so many people. In no time, they complete the coop, and the chicken immediately feels at home in it, making them excited. After this, the group heads home, and Asako claims that Haru's friends might not be jerks after all. After a while, they split up, and Haru is left alone with Shizuku. Even though she can head home alone, Haru wants to walk with her, and this makes her nervous. While they walk home, he claims that his life has been better ever since he met her, and this makes her admit her feelings for him. He then explains that he was scared that she'll reject him, and she says she'll wait until he's ready before she confesses her feelings for him. As she walks to her house, he gets a text that Yuzan is coming to his house, so he decides to stay with her to avoid seeing Yuzan, and her father is shocked to see him. After having dinner, he takes a bath and meets her doing schoolwork, which surprises him. Soon after, he falls asleep and she tucks him into bed. The next morning, Shizuku makes breakfast for them, and Haru says they should call the Ghostbusters since he saw Casper in his room the previous night. She then explains that it was her younger brother, and her father wonders why he's so chill with being in the house. The following day, the results of the end-of-term exams are released, and Shizuku is devastated that Haru came first. She then makes up her mind to study harder over the summer break, and Asako tries to console her but gets upset since she'll have to take makeup exams. When Haru hears about summer break, he thinks of all the fun things about the break and blurts that he'd like to see Shizuku in a thong, making Asako realize that he's freaky like that. However, Shizuku says they should count her out of it, and before the class rep can tell her about the school's upcoming activity, she walks out of class to complain about her scores. After her meeting with Seiko, she runs into Haru outside the school, and while they talk, some bimbos toss a ball at him, and they're very scared when they get it from him. Seeing this, Shizuru tells him to stop giving everyone death stares, but he doesn't know he looks like Pennywise. She then explains that people avoid him because of it, and that people are scared of him when he's scared of them. Before leaving, she claims she likes when he smiles, and this turns him into a tomato. After this, a chick dusts some chalk on him while he is stroking his cock by the window, and she's scared he would rip her head off her body. However, he smiles at her, and this makes her heart flutter. After this, he hands a couple of chicks their doll that fell, then hits them with a smile, and this rizzes them up. After this, he decides to help another chick while smiling, and all the girls realize that he's handsome. Soon enough, he becomes more popular than the entire BTS crew put together, and Asako figures that the girls would eventually flock to him since he looks better than Timothée Chalamet. Just then, he jumps through the window like Spider-Man and tells Shizuku that her advice worked. Immediately, he takes his seat, a bunch of hotties gather around him, and he tells them to piss off, but they take it as a joke. This surprises Asako, and Shizuku feels triggered. Later on, Asako finds her feeding the cock, and she figures that she hasn't been able to talk to Haru because he's drowning in hotties. Meanwhile, a battalion of chicks gather to watch Haru as he plays better than Ronaldo on the football pitch. To have some fun, Sohei forces him to wave at them, and the crowd goes wild, which confuses him. On the other hand, Asako is surprised that they're suddenly treating him differently, and she soon realizes that Shizuku is jealous as she walks away. After playing volleyball, the girls meet Sohei and they talk about Haru. Meanwhile, the girls are busy stuffing Haru with food, and Chizuru calls them to help set up the class for an event. However, they ignore her, and she decides to do everything herself, which bugs Haru. Seeing this, he asks if they're friends, and they deny being close to her, claiming they're only classmates. Soon after, Haru meets a group of people scolding Chizuru, and it gets on his nerves moves when they push her to the ground. He then approaches them, and the chicks in the group start taunting him. As he scares her brains out, the dude punches him, and he suddenly grabs his hand, scolding him for bullying Chizuru. Just then, everyone notices them fighting, and Haru uses the dude to practice the combo he saw in Street Fighter. He then tells the dude to stand up, and the chick begs him to stop. Just then, he realizes that everyone is terrified, and Shizuku rushes to meet him, asking what happened. Before he can explain, the teacher shows up and she runs off with him. While he cleans up, she scolds him for stirring up trouble, and he asks if he's done something wrong. He explains that it happened to him before and he can't figure out why it happened. She then explains that he's going about things the wrong way and that she's sure he's a good person, which makes him relieved. Sohei soon calls him, and he wagers hanging out with her before leaving. After winning the wager, the group heads to the beach, and Haru has a diving contest with Asako, while Misawa teaches the rest how to fish. Later on, Haru shows Sohei a bunch of fish he caught with bare hands, which makes him freak out. Later on, Misawa tells Asako to do some dishes, and the two drool over her since she looks hotter than a Victoria's Secret model. While they have lunch, Misawa explains that he's Haru's cousin, and he's looking after him since he lives close to Haru's school. Asako then reveals that she thought he was Haru's older brother, and when Misawa talks about Haru's brother, Haru shuts down the conversation. After this, they head to Haru's house, and he tells Shizuku that he had a lot of fun. Misawa then tells them to head in while he brings up their stuff, and while heading up, he suddenly dashes out of the house. Just then, they meet Yuzan, and Asako freaks out since she saw him taking money from Misawa. Right then, Misawa meets them, and Yuzan is shocked that she assumed he was extorting cash from Misawa. They then head in, and he introduces himself to them. Following this, Misawa explains that he was returning what he borrowed from Yuzan, and he asks how Haru is doing. In response, Sohei says he's doing well at school because of Shizuku, and he becomes interested in her. He then thanks her for putting up with Heiru, and Asako asks why Heiru ran when he saw him, but he brushes off the question, claiming he has a brother complex. Afterwards, Sohei concludes that Yuzan is a chill guy, and before Shizuku heads home, Yuzan tells her to keep an eye on Haru. While walking home, Haru snatches her into a dark alleyway and asks if they smashed watermelons. She then narrates how their meeting went, and Haru suddenly doesn't want to talk about his brother anymore. After this, she invites him to the house for some watermelon, and he apologizes for being rude to her. He asks if there's anything he can do for her since she's always saving him, and she asks him to take her on a date, making him shy. The next day, Haru tells Misawa about his date with Shizuku, and he feels happy for him, telling him to make sure she has fun. Just then, Haru starts thinking about putting Shizuku in 7 positions in 70 minutes, and Misawa advises him to pump the brakes on trying to get Shizuku to have his male chicken. The next day at school, Haru rubs his cock vigorously, letting it know that he missed it very much, and Shizuku soon meets him as she walks into school. He then yells that he got to school early since he was excited that he'll get to see her every day for the rest of the second semester, and this embarrasses Shizuku. He asks why she never answered his calls over the summer break, and everyone thinks he's hitting on her, making her feel like she looked Medusa in the eyes. After heading into class, Asako meets them, and they realize she's sick, so they tell her to keep her cold to herself, making her sad. Just then, Haru sees that Shizuku is studying, and Sohei is impressed that she's a year ahead of the class. Shizuku then loses her mind when she finds out that Haru barely studies, and he reveals that he's already learned all the high school materials. He then asks where she'd like to go for their date, and she says the library, giving off a spiritual pressure stronger than Kenpachi's. Later on in class, Shizuku thinks about what Haru said, and she wonders how much information about his life he's willing to tell her. Meanwhile, he is busy goofing off in class, and she concludes that she doesn't understand the dude. At the end of the school day, she suggests they stop by the library, and on their way out of school, they meet Yuzan surrounded by a group of bimbos. Just then, Haru goes to get some milk, and Yuzan meets Shizuku while she looks around for Haru. While he complains about the attention he was getting, she asks what he's doing at the school, and she decides to be on her way before he can respond. He then stops her and lets her know he's there to see her. Meanwhile, Haru regrets not grabbing Shizuku as he was escaping, and his scream of frustration scares Chizuru. He then recognizes her, and before she can disappear like an irresponsible father, he asks her for a favor. He gets her to help check if Yuzan is still at the gate, and while doing this, he realizes she's their class rep. This makes him excited since he thinks highly of class reps, but she doesn't feel the same way and thinks she was chosen just because she has 4 eyes. Hearing this, Haru considers wearing glasses, and Chizuru says he'll look hot if he does. This puts a smile on his face, and he claims she's a nice person, which makes her shy. Before she can respond to his compliment, he becomes pissed, and this scares the life out of her. He then runs off, and she feels happy since it's been a while since someone complimented her. Meanwhile, Yuzan talks Shizuku's ear off, and later decides to get some sweets, figuring that Haru would show up soon. Right then, Haru activates his inner Wally West, since he got a photo from Yuzan with Shizuku, and he gets frustrated as he runs around the park looking for them. Meanwhile, Shizuku waits for Yuzan and wonders what he's up to. Before long, he shows up with a box of donuts and explains that he had to wait in line. He then hands her a snack, and she asks what he wants to discuss about Haru. In response, he wants to know if she's his girlfriend, and this makes her shy. He is surprised that they aren't, dating since they're together all the time, and she explains that she confessed to him, but he rejected her. However, she says she'll wait for him to love her before confessing again, and Yuzan figures that Haru likes her too much, which makes him scared of losing her. After cheering her on, he gets very serious and says he wants Haru to quit school so he can go back home. This shocks Shizuku, and Yuzan says that their father kicked Haru out before middle school because of the trouble he was causing. However, his dad suddenly has a change of heart and wants Haru to come back home. So he sent Yuzan to convince him to return, but he can't talk to him since their relationship is worse than Sasuke and Itachi's. Shizuku then finds out that Haru doesn't intend to return home, and Yuzan seems to expect that. Unexpectedly, Yuzan says he wants her to convince Haru to stay since he'd be a bother at home, and this triggers Shizuku. While they're still talking, Haru suddenly pulls her away from him, and he yells at him for going after Shizuku. After telling him he doesn't have any plans to head home, Haru walks away with Shizuku, but she stops him and says he should hear Yuzan out. Even though she explains that he wants him to stay in school, Haru still doesn't trust him, but he decides to hear what he has to say after Yuzan threatens Shizuku. He then claims that he wants Haru to promise he'll stay in school and explains that his father wants to enroll Haru in a school he can influence, but if Haru can keep up with his current situation, there's no need to take him home. After this, Haru tells him not to buy them again and leaves with Shizuku. On their way home, he warns Shizuku to stay away from Yuzan, but she refuses to, and explains that she wanted to know more about him. He then tells her about his past with Yuzan, and hearing him talk so fondly about his past makes her wonder if he wants to go home. However, he says it's a den of monsters having a sad look on his face, and decides to have a skin-to-skin moment with him to cheer him up. She then advises him to admit his true feelings about where he wants to be. He claims he wants to be with her. The next day, Shizuku meets with her friends while heading into school, and the warm feeling she has makes her understand why Haru doesn't want to go home. Soon after they enter school, the class rep meets Haru and thanks him for defending her, apologizing for not thanking him earlier. Just then, Shizuku sees that she's giving Haru the googly eyes. She has a bad feeling about it. The next morning, Shizuku thinks about what happened the previous day, and she realizes she's very distracted by it. She tries figuring out what she's feeling and wonders how she can get rid of them. Just then, she gets a fax from her mother asking if she's working hard, and this makes her mood worse. Later at school, Chizuru becomes depressed when her classmates pin an errand on her and don't even remember her name. She then recalls how she fell sick on the first day of high school, and everyone had made friends already, leaving her all alone. While in class, she sees everyone having fun, and this makes her feel worthless. Just then, she gets a message from her only friend who is in another school, and she soon hears some chicks talking about Haru. This makes her blush, and she figures that she's in love with the dude. However, they notice he's always hanging out with Shizuku, and they assume they're a couple, which makes Chizuru nervous. A while later, Seiko announces that they'll be selecting new representatives for the class, and the class starts nominating people. Just then, Haru starts showing off his glasses, and he thinks it'll get him nominated. Seeing him behave weirdly, Shizuku thinks he needs professional help in the mental health department. In the end, he wasn't nominated by anyone, and this ruins his mood. Meanwhile, Shizuku is busy creating a scene from 50 Shades of Grey with him in her mind. After this, Asako notices that he isn't in class anymore, and Sohei says he left the class feeling sad about what happened. Just then, Asako gossips about Chizuru's love stare at Haru, and asks if Shizuku knows when she started falling for Haru. Just then, Sohei tells them about Chizuru, claiming that everyone on the football team thinks she's hot, and this makes Asako excited. However, it seems to get on Shizuku's nerves, and she claims that she's too busy with her schoolwork to be bothered about things like that. Then, she gets up to see the teacher about her mock score, and Asako feels disappointed that Shizuku isn't excited about having a love rivalry. In reality, Shizuku thinks about Haru, and she realizes that it's the first time she really wants something that doesn't relate to academics, but she decides romance can't work since she has to be top of her class. Meanwhile, Haru joins Chizuru while she's having lunch, and cries about not being nominated even after he puts on the glasses. While he aura farms, Chizuru's eyes are glued to him, and he notices that she is always alone. He then points out the reasons for that, and each of them crushes her soul, making her more depressed. He then tries to cheer her up and says he now has friends even though he used to be like her in the past. This makes her feel better, and she uses the opportunity to ask about his relationship with Shizuku. He then talks fondly of Asako and randomly says he loves Shizuku, which stuns her. Before she can get more info, Asako joins them, and Haru introduces Chizuru to her. He then tells her that having friendship is a concept to Chizuru, which makes Asako worry about her. Just then, they assemble the gang in the library to talk about how to help Chizuru, and this makes Shizuku pissed. Before Chizuru can apologize for disturbing her, Asako starts presenting her case to Shizuku and asks for her help. This makes Chizuru feel embarrassed, and Shizuku decides to leave. Haru can't figure out why she's suddenly so uptight, and tells her to ignore them as usual, but she says she can't focus there. This seems weird to him, and when Asako tries convincing her to stay, she rudely tells Chizuru to handle her problems herself. This makes Haru pissed, and he admits that he doesn't like her cold attitude. This leads to an argument between them, and the environment becomes tense as the two go back and forth, while Chizuru blames herself. After this, Shizuku storms out of the room, and everyone is shocked by what just happened. Later on, the teacher splits everyone into pairs for their PE class, and Chizuru realizes she is alone once again. Before she can start crashing out, she realizes that Shizuku doesn't have a partner, and she summons strength from the All-Father to approach her. While they talk, she apologizes for causing an argument, but Shizuku feels it's not her fault, and tells her to let the gang know that they're bothering her. However, Chizuru isn't bothered by them, and it dawns on her that she's lonely because she doesn't dare to talk to anyone. After this, Haru meets her at her usual hangout spot, and she finds out that he hasn't settled his fight with Shizuku yet. He then explains that she's been ignoring him, and Chizuru tells him not to help with her lack of friends problem anymore. While he notices how gloomy she is, she asks about what he said about loving Shizuku, and his awkward reaction makes her panic. Just Just then, Asako invites them to play together with Shizuku, and they feel awkward about it. While Asako has a blast with Sohei, Chizuru almost gets crushed by the tension between Haru and Shizuku. After a moment of silence, he outright asks her why she is ignoring him, and she gives the classic signs of someone who is head over heels in love with him. This shocks Chizuru, and she realizes that even Shizuku feels love too. However, the airhead thinks she's actually sick and tells her to see the nurse. This gets on Chizuru's nerves, and she starts throwing a tantrum, trying to make him realize that Shizuku cares for him. Her crash-out session shocks everyone, and Haru desperately defends himself. Feeling embarrassed, she takes off at Mach 11 speeds, and Asako tells Haru to go after her. In that moment, Chizuru feels sad that nothing is working out for her, and Haru sees her talking to herself. He tells her not to pressure herself, and she should work on achieving what she can. This makes her relieved, and she accepts that she's in love with Haru. Just then, Shizuku recalls when she was younger, and she told her dad about her nickname in school. While they were hanging out, he promises that they'll visit a festival with her mom, and this makes her excited. However, her mom stood her up on the day of the festival because of work, and this made all of them sad. Even when her dad suggested they go without her mom, Shizuku turned him down and said she'd study instead. This memory made her realize that she channeled her sorrows into studying, and she felt rewarded whenever she got good grades. The next morning, Haru notices that Shizuku is back to her usual self, but she doesn't admit that something was wrong with her before. She then friend-zones him, which freaks Haru out, and while she walks away, she makes up her mind not to be distracted from her studies. The next day, the gang shows up at the Misawa store, and he tells them Haru went on a date with Shizuku. Everyone seemed to know about this except Asako, and she gets upset about this. Meanwhile, Haru gets mad that Shizuku took him to the library, and she claims she wasn't aware they were on a date, which upsets him more. Back at the store, Asako feels down that Shizuku isn't talking to her about her personal stuff, and Misawa explains that she probably doesn't want advice on romantic matters because it's new to her. While he assures her she'll open up eventually, Yuzan claims that the couple would soon hit a bump in their relationship since it requires honesty, and Haru would run away when it comes to that. Meanwhile, Shizuku notices that Haru is staring at her, and she decides to get distracted by him. She then tells him she's not attracted to him anymore, and this breaks his heart. Later on, Haru gets home feeling down, and he tells Misawa about his disappointing date with Shizuku. Just then, he spots an old photo that Misawa found of his aunt, and this reminds him of when he first met her. He then recalls how she taught him about important values in life and taught him to read. The next day, Chizuru meets Haru sunbathing his cock, and he teases her for crashing out when they last talked. She then tells him that she's been doing her best as the class rep, and she took his advice. Although she feels bothered that she now has more tasks, she is in a good place mentally, and Haru feels happy for her. Meanwhile, Asako feels furious as she sees him talking to Chizuru, thinking he's hitting on her, and Haru tells Chizuru that Shizuku rejected him. This makes her freak out, and he explains that her question about his feelings for Shizuku made him realize he loved her. Seeing that he feels hopeless about going out with Shizuku, Chizuru intends to confess to him, but she tells him to keep trying to get Shizuku instead, and he explains that Shizuku has totally given up on him. He goes on to conclude that he has to be okay with it, and Asako disagrees with him, telling him to confess properly to Shizuku. He then thinks that her last remaining brain cell has been eliminated by the juice she's drinking, and this makes her annoyed. She explains that it doesn't matter if Shizuku is nonchalant towards him, and it's the reason she loves her. She goes on to say that her nonchalant attitude makes her comfortable around Shizuku, and she doesn't feel judged when she acts like herself. After this, she runs away feeling shy, and Haru is left wondering what just happened. While walking around school, Haru thinks about Asako's speech and wonders why the women around him are getting mad at him. Just then, he recalls when he was with his aunt as a kid, and she protected him from his brother when he was being naughty. After this, she praised him for completing an assignment she gave him, even though he's still behaving like a brat. Later on, she gets admitted to a clinic, and she tries to console him, telling him that all humans wither away at the end. He then remembers her advice to find someone who would soothe his pain, and he suddenly spots Shizuku sitting by a window. This brings a smile to his face, and his cock craves after her head, waking her up. She notices he's in a happy mood, and he says he was thinking of a dead person, which makes her think he's a necrophiliac. He then recalls a quote that his aunt used to say and wonders why he remembers it. Suddenly, he confesses to her, and she almost loses her mind, which amuses him. However, he says he understands that she isn't into him, but he suddenly attempts to stick his tongue down her throat. She immediately tells him to zip his pants up, and he explains that his libido suddenly shot to the moon. He suddenly asks her out, and she turns him down without hesitation. He then complains about this, but she shuts each of his arguments down and tells him to shove his feelings up his bum. This annoys him, and he tries to pressure her into agreeing, but she doesn't budge. A couple of days later, she gets mad that she didn't beat the test, and he mocks her, making her mad. As she walks away angrily, he realizes that she makes his days fun, and this puts a smile on his face. Later that day, Shizuku notices that her seatmate at her cram school is from a prestigious school, and she's more surprised to find that he's Kenji. The next day at school, Haru decides to hang out with Shizuku, and she asks if he isn't helping prepare for the festival like he promised he would. He then explains that everyone got scared of him when he arrived at class, and she hands him some tickets. He uses the opportunity to put the moves on her, and this triggers her, causing her to go ham on him. She goes on to say that she'll be upset if he touches her without her consent, and he claims she's been distant ever since he confessed to her. Their love quarrel attracts everyone's attention, and she says she won't be with him if he doesn't respect her space. He still tries to make up for this, and she says she'll be uncomfortable around reprimand him if he continues to be too close to her. After this, he rants about what's happening to Asako, and she takes Shizuku's side. She then explains that it's creepy when someone she doesn't like touches her without her permission, and this breaks Haru. He then builds a fortress around the chicken coop and names it after Shizuku, which Asako thinks is a bad idea. Just then, they spot Shizuku close by, and Shizuku overhears Sohei discussing how to make money during the school festival. This interests her, and she corners them into letting her have a cut of the profit they make. Sohei then points out that they'll need a good spot for their event during the festival, but their rep is too scared to challenge the upper-level students for it, so Haru decides to help. After this, they all head to the meeting, and the upperclassmen all struggle for the good spots. When they bid for one of the spots, some dude tries to make them back out, but Haru backs her up. Just then, the dude pushes Shizuku out of the way, and this triggers Haru. After he knocks the dude out, they get the worst spot, and the group scolds him for losing his temper. After this, Chizuru meets Haru serving punishment for what he did, and he explains that he's feeling bad since Shizuku is mad at him for fighting. She then advises him on what to do and tells him to learn to resolve problems without fighting. After finally getting why Shizuku is mad at him, Haru becomes excited, and Chizuru decides to leave, feeling that she fell in love with a bozo. Just then, he says he doesn't see why she doesn't like herself since she's very likable, and she finally tells him to stop calling her by her title. She then says she's willing to take a risk with him, and this confuses him. Meanwhile, Shizuku eavesdrops on them, and she wonders why she's feeling some type of way. After school, Shizuku runs into Kenji while walking to cram school, and he decides to walk with her. While they talk, he is shocked that she isn't Haru's girlfriend, and she explains that she doesn't want to be distracted by romance stuff. When he mocks her for living a boring life, she defends her resolve and convinces herself that she's making the right choice of ignoring Haru. They then meet Kenji's minions begging Asako for some tickets to the festival, and Kenji makes fun of them. Just then, she hands them a couple of tickets and walks off while Kenji holds the tickets hostage. Later that evening, Shizuku meets with Haru and hands him his tickets. He stops her before she leaves and asks her real reason for calling him. She then says she's never going to fall in love with him and tells him to quit chasing after her. However, he makes up his mind to change her mind and almost kisses her. This makes her run off feeling embarrassed, and she seems to be doubting her resolve. Meanwhile, Misawa notices that Haru is in a happy mood, and Haru gets high on the memory of Shizuku's shy face. A couple of days later, the day of the festival arrives, and Shizuku's stall is a horror mansion. Kenji's friends then arrive there, and they are confused to see Shizuku dressed as a nurse. She guides them into the stall and tries to sound scary, but they just find her pathetic. Just then, they see Haru dressed as Dracula, and they make fun of his costume. Suddenly, Haru sprays them with fake blood, which he is very excited about, and since he ruined their outfits, they ask him to introduce them to some girls. Meanwhile, Shizuku is in the backyard, thinking about how she lost control of her emotions the other night, and she wonders when she became so indecisive since she used to be firm in the past. On the other hand, Yuzan shows up at the festival, and Misawa asks why he came since he promised not to show his face again. He replies that he had to show up so he could mess with Haru, and Misawa doesn't want to be part of his plan. While Shizuku is lost in thought, Kenji appears out of the woods and he awkwardly greets Shizuku before telling her that he is leaving. However, he appears again, and Shizuku figures that he seems to be lost. Even when she offers to help, he turns her down since he is too proud to accept help, and she gives up on him. At that moment, Asako arrives and they invite him to walk with them. They reach the schoolyard where Haru is showing the boys his rooster, and they're hyped to see it. Just then, Shizuku and the others meet him there, and Asako turns into Prime Houdini to avoid Kenji's friends. Just then, Haru asks why Shizuku is with Kenji, and to trigger him, Kenji grabs Shizuku. This makes Haru mad since she does not allow him to touch her, and Kenji taunts him, claiming she likes his touch. Out of anger, Haru tries to hit Kenji but ends up feeding Shizuku a knuckle sandwich instead. This makes everyone freeze in shock, and while he apologizes for facilitating her appointment with a dentist, Shizuku tells him not to practice social distancing with her from now on, making everyone scared. As Shizuku leaves, Asako runs after her and explains that Haru didn't mean to hurt her. Shizuku then explains that she doesn't want Haru to influence her life anymore, and questions why she can't break free of him. Thinking she wants her advice, Asako starts spitting out Oogway-level wisdom, but Shizuku misunderstands her words and coldly tells her to back off. This leaves her depressed, and the others who were spying on them feel that Shizuku was being too harsh. While she cleans up, Kenji meets her and offers her some ice for her nose. She then lets him know that he caused all the problems, and he lets her know that Haru is all alone. He also tells her that she can't break free from Haru because she expects Haru to live up to her expectations, but she does not want to live up to his, and that it isn't fair. While they walk back to school, she thinks about how badly she acted earlier, and Kenji judges her for not feeling bad about being alone. While they talk, she admits that Kenji is very smart, and he is shocked by this. Just then, he sees Yuzan, and before he can spot them, Kenji drags Shizuku into a classroom, and he refuses to admit that he's scared of them, claiming he just had a traumatic experience. Suddenly, they hear the door open, and the two rush to take cover. Just then, they see Haru with Chizuru, and they realize he's hiding too. Suddenly, Haru asks what Chizuru would do if he says he likes her, and this makes her freak out. She soon realizes he's talking about his problem with Shitsuku, and she takes the opportunity to declare her feelings to him, but he does not understand. Seeing this, Shizuku wants to leave but is held back by Kenji, who holds her tight before calling Haru, and this triggers Haru. Right then, Yuzan enters the classroom, and Haru and Kenji are scared to their bones. shoes. Meanwhile, Asako tells Misawa how badly Shizuku treated her when she tries to advise her, and she blames herself for causing the fight between them, thinking their friendship is done. However, Misawa consoles her and assures her that the friendship isn't dead, making her relieved. Just then, Sohei meets her crying and meets with them. In the meantime, Haru holds Chizuru hostage, and Yuzan points out that the entire school is watching him. When he realizes that he's causing a scene, he lets her go, and he feels traumatized, so he rushes out of the class. Shizuku then checks on Chizuru, and Yuzan apologizes for what Haru did. Before Yuzan can talk to Shizuku, Kenji gets in the way to stop her from going with him, and Yuzan immediately recognizes Kenji. Yuzan just gives Haru's shoes to Shizuku and asks her to return them while Kenji hands her part of her costume. Then, he leaves with Chizuru to take her to her classroom, and soon after, Kenji leaves with his friends. Afterward, Shizuku hands Haru his shoes, and he admits that he messed up. She then tells him to reflect on his mistakes, but she admits that she makes mistakes too. He then reminds her of her distance rule, and she abolishes the rule, making him mock her. Haru then gets ready and agrees to apologize to Chizuru. While he does this, Shizuku goes to apologize to Asako, and this creeps her out. Asako accepts her apology, and tears start leaking from her eyes. Haru soon appears from a bush with his cock in his arm, and Kohei spots them, telling them to get back to work. The festival continues until night comes, and everyone seems to have fun. At the end, Shizuku washes up and she rushes to meet Haru, only to find him asleep. Seeing how peaceful he looks, she decides to stroke his hair, and just as she is about to touch him, he wakes up, claiming she scared him. Seeing how cute she's acting, he quarrels about the mixed signals she's sending him, and asks if he has a chance or not. She gets rattled and gets free of his hand. Shizuku decides to open up and explains that thinking about him too much makes her grades suffer. So, she made the resolve to study, and she laments about concentrating while she's in tears. Seeing this, Haru hugs her, and she feels overwhelmed by warm emotion. She then understands that he makes her feel good, and she asks him for more time so she can decide if they'll enter a relationship. Some days later, Shizuku dreams about talking to Haru, and she realizes she has to face her feelings for him. Just then, she wakes up and sees the man of her dreams in her room. When she asks why he's there, he explains that Sohei went to the library to read, so he decided to hang out with her, and tells her to go shopping with him. She then asks how he got in, and he says he wanted to feel like Spider-Man climbing through the window because her father was surprised to see him, thinking there were classes. He then rats her out, and she remembers that her father should be at his store. Immediately, she rushes down to meet him and scolds him for being at home. He then tells her that the store went under, and she blames herself for not being vigilant, asking why he didn't tell her about it. She soon calls her mother to give her the bad news, and her father tells Haru to stick around to prevent a murder. After talking with her mom, she passes on her mother's spiteful message about him being worse than the dads that go for the milk, and makes him freak out. She says they should prepare to clean up the store, and tells Haru to go home before she heads to her room. This stuns Haru since she's calmer than someone on ganja, and her father tells Haru it's the 6th time the store has gone under, making Haru realize he's a bum. Her father accepts the title and explains that her mother worked so hard to help them get by, and this made Shizuku very lonely while growing up. He then feels bad that Shizuku doesn't have any friends, but Haru says she does, and this shocks him. Just then, Shizuku arrives in her granny clothes and sends her dad to get ready. At the center, the gang gathers to study, and Sohei tells them that he now has a girlfriend, which shocks them. After he tells them how they got together, he realizes that Haru didn't know they went to the same high school, and this bums him out. Just then, Haru asks Sohei if he has made the bed creak with his girlfriend, and they give each other a look. This makes Asako uncomfortable, and she asks them not to talk about stuff like that. After they mess with her some more, she asks Haru what happened with Shizuku, and he tells her that Shizuku asked him for time to sort out her feelings. This makes her panic since it was such a long time ago, and she feels that Haru is wasting too much time before making his move on her. Just then, Shizuku arrives at the center at her father's request, and she panics when she sees Haru since they have to talk. Later, she asks Haru to accompany her back, and while they talk, he asks about her father. She tells him her father handled the store problems, and he brings up the issue of her childhood that was as lonely as growing up in space. She then tells him how her mother is always working and that she wants to become a working woman too. However, she talks about a pet goldfish she really wanted to have and narrates how she never got it. This taught her about disappointments and that she should not get her hopes up. Suddenly, Haru grabs Shizuku's hand, and this brings up a lot of emotions for her, recalling Kenji's advice about being honest with her feelings. He then leads her to a river where he hopes to find a crayfish to give her and cheer her up, but she yells at him instead. She explains that she didn't tell him the story so he can find a pet for her, but he's stubborn about it. Meanwhile, Kenji arrives in the library and decides to look for some books to read. Just then, he runs into Shizuku there, and she helps him find the book he's looking for. She then says she wants to see him, and he is shocked, thinking she's interested in him. He then realizes that she wants him to tutor her, and he initially says he doesn't want to. While they talk about stuff, he asks about Haru since they've been hanging out a lot lately, and she tells him that he has stayed by the river, fishing for a crayfish for her. Realizing how stupid that is, he mocks his childish behavior, and he wonders why they're talking about Haru, making him feel awkward. Just then, she tells him she took his advice to open up to her friends, and he wonders why she's telling him that. She then admits that he gives good advice, calling him smart, and this shocks him. In the meantime, Asako is waiting for the others with Sohei so they can study together, and fills her in on where they are. This makes her realize that Haru is up to his pushy ways, and she fears it'll piss Shizuku off. However, she decides to focus on studying when suddenly some girls walk in, and this scares her. This reminds her of when they mocked her for having just guy friends in high school, and she quickly hides behind the menu. They notice her and begin judging her, whispering to each other. And this traumatizes Asako. Just then, Misawa arrives and intimidates them, causing them to leave. This makes Asako fall for him. At the end of their study session, Kenji escorts Shizuku to the bus station, and after she leaves, he wonders why he's developing feelings for her. As he walks away, he begins to realize that he is in love with her, and he also notices that he still has her pen. Meanwhile, Shizuku remembers when her mother started working to support the family since her dad is a deadbeat and how she craved her attention. She then realizes why she developed her introverted mindset, and she soon arrives where her friends are. Just then, she sees that Haru is still by the river, and he lets her know that he found a crab but was unable to catch it. So he tells her that he will give her something even better instead. At that moment, Kenji passes by in his taxi and sees Shizuku. He gets out to return her pen but realizes that she is with Haru, and this ruins his mood. So he waits for everyone else to leave before giving the pen to Haru, and he asks why he's with her. In response, Kenji tells him that he hung out with her at the library, and before he leaves, Haru asks if he is in love with Shizuku, to which Kenji simply owns up to it. Some days later, Shizuku finds an invitation to a Christmas party in her locker, and she decides to ignore it. However, she finds another one in her backpack and angrily asks Asako about it, who confesses that she was the one who had put them there. The day of the party arrives, and Shizuku goes shopping with Haru and Asako. While they walk around town, Shizuku thinks about holding off on discussing romantic stuff with Haru since he's behaving very strangely and wants to attack every person with a sausage between their legs. They then enter a fast food restaurant to buy chicken, where they meet Kenji and his friends, and they immediately flock to Asako, which scares her. They then decide to join the Christmas party even though they do not have an invitation, and Shizuku asks if Kenji is coming too so she can know how much food to get. He initially doesn't want to come, but he changes his mind when Haru says he shouldn't come, and this leads to an argument. Just then, Haru blurts out that Kenji wants to do the horizontal tango with Shizuku, causing everyone nearby to stop and stare in shock. Immediately, Kenji tells them it was just a joke, and everyone accepts that explanation. However, Kenji is pissed that Haru exposed him, and Shizuku meets him to drag him for money, making him more pissed. After this, they all head to the Misawa batting center, and Haru tells Misawa that they're having a party, which surprises him. Just then, Asako sneaks past them to avoid Misawa, and Kenji's friends narrate why Misawa is scary to them. While she's staring at him, he waves at her, and she turns away feeling shy. He then asks if she's fine since she's acting strange, and Shizuku assures him that she's okay. Elsewhere, Sohei is on his way to the party when he sees Chizuru, and he invites her to come along. However, she refuses to tag along, and before he leaves, he succeeds in combing her hair. When they arrive, Kenji's friends get excited because another girl has joined them, and Asako meets her feeling relieved. Meanwhile, Kenji teases Shizuku since her rival is around, but she doesn't seem to give a damn. Just then, Misawa notices that Asako has been avoiding him, and Sohei figures that she has fallen in love with him since he defended her. This makes him disappointed since he feels like he lost her to him, and he mocks Misawa for being an airhead. In the end, Misawa is happy to see that Haru has made friends and has matured. The party continues, and Oshima does not know how to behave around everyone since they're behaving wildly. They then notice that Shizuku is studying, and Chizuru is amazed that she can focus there. Sohei then advises her to ignore them, and Misawa backs his claim. While they talk, they find out that they all went to the same middle school and that Haru was very scary back then. However, he says he's no longer like that since he's with Shizuku, and this creeps them out. Just then, Chizuru asks her if she is going to attend the winter session at a special cram school because she plans to attend the regular classes, and after Shizuku says she's going, Kenji tells her that he will also be taking those classes. This makes Haru turn into the Hulk, so he asks Misawa if he can attend as well, but he tells him they do not have the money for it and that he does not need it anyway. Just then, Shizuku thanks Kenji for his advice to her and says she plans to confess her feelings to Haru. This makes him panic, so he tries convincing her not to rush things, and Asako notices this. Later on, Kenji's friends decide to imitate the Beast Titan in the batting cages, and Asako meets with Kenji to tell him not to interfere in the relationship between Shizuku and Haru. While he argues with her, Chizuru walks in, and he tells her that she should scold Chizuru since she's in love with Haru. Asako then replies that she knows her place, which leaves Oshima feeling depressed, and she struggles to console her. After this, Haru looks around for Shizuku and can't seem to find her. Later on, he meets Kenji outside, and he says he's glad Haru is having fun in his new school. Kenji then tells Haru that he will become his friend in exchange for Shizuku, but Haru refuses. He then asks what Haru would do if Shizuku ended up liking him more instead, and Haru raises his hand as if to attack him, but Shizuku appears just in time. Haru tells her that they should leave together and warns Kenji to keep his hands off her before leaving. While he walks away, Kenji is shaken up by what just happened and shakes in fear. On their way home, Haru notices that her hair is pretty, and this reminds him of a story about a bad guy that had a chance at salvation but ruined it. After they analyze the story, Haru admits that he had fun with everyone at the party and says that he'd like to stay home with her the next year, claiming that it brings good health through the year. After this, Haru asks Shizuku if she really has to attend the winter classes since she will be spending the entire winter with Kenji, and Shizuku figures that he's jealous. Shizuku then reassures him by confessing that she loves him and tells him not to worry, making him smile. Even so, Haru continues begging her not to attend, and this triggers her. The winter prep course finally begins, and Shizuku walks toward the the entrance with Kenji. Meanwhile, Haru follows behind her, whining like an unfed baby, and repeatedly asking her not to go. Shizuku soon loses her patience, and she yells that he shouldn't tell her what to do before storming off. However, Haru follows her and tries convincing her. Just then, Kenji stops him at the entrance since he's not allowed in and taunts him, before entering in. Later on, Kenji studies with Shizuku in class, and she tells him that she's hungry. He could get the title of the world's best overthinker as he thinks about inviting her to dinner, but then realizes that she has brought her own food, which bums him out. While walking around town, Kenji starts feeling like a member of the royal family, and how he has always gotten whatever he wanted while meeting everyone's expectations of him. On top of that, he has never had any problems with girls, so he doesn't understand what it is about Shizuku that he likes so much. The next day, Sohei is busy showing the boys the photos he took at the Christmas party, and tells them to mark the photos they want since he can make copies. Haru is excited to see his pictures with Shizuku, flipping through every photo, and Asako suggests that they invite only their close friends the next year. Meanwhile, Shizuku thinks of her conversation with Kenji, feeling troubled, and Haru selects their pictures to give her. He then calls Sohei a spy for taking so many pictures, and Sohei feels proud since he got good photos of them. While she goes through them, Haru notices in one of the photos where Kenji is talking with Shizuku, and he angrily throws it aside. Seeing this, Asako asks why he tossed it aside, and he brushes off the question. Just then, she goes to pick it up and notices that Masawa is in the background, so she quickly folds the photo as well, looking nervous. Meanwhile, Kenji's friends feel like they'll grow old without ever playing Dirty Twister with a girl, and plan to have a mixer while Kenji heads to cram school. They then suspect that he has feelings for Shizuku, but he shuts their suspicion down. While he heads out, some dude says a cute girl says she likes him, and he says he's not interested. Shortly after this, he sees someone from behind who he thinks is Shizuku and wants to greet her, but it turns out to be an old woman. He then notices a girl staring at him, but he ignores her and continues on his way. A little later, he meets the real Shizuku and wonders if he should flirt with her, but his ego wouldn't let him. At that moment, he suddenly grabs her and pulls her aside because a bicycle is passing by. While he still has her in his arms, Haru appears and hits him on the head. Themis gets them into a fight, and Shizuku immediately starts scolding Haru because he has followed her again. The two then begin to argue, and Kenji tries sneaking away. However, she walks angrily past him to class, and Kenji pretends to hug her. This turns off his only surviving brain cell. Haru throws a can at him, but it ends up hitting Shizuku instead, making the situation even worse, and she stares daggers at him. Once they are in class, Kenji notices a bump on his head, and Shizuku apologizes. She goes on to tell him that she confessed her feelings to Haru, and he got jealous because of Kenji. In response, Kenji says they suit each other since they have the same IQ as Patrick Star, and Shizuku wouldn't have any problems if she went out with him. She then tells him that she'll help him apply something cold to reduce the swelling on his head, but he refuses, and his heart begins to race because of this. While they talk, she says that it would be best if he kept his distance from both of them, and Kenji initially refuses, thinking that she's considering Haru's feelings. She then explains that it isn't because of jealousy, but because it shows how attractive he is. After class, Kenji feels happy as he thinks about the fact that Shizuku finds him attractive, and he gives a victory yell. Just then, he realizes that the same girl from earlier has been watching him again, and he ignores her once more by quickly walking away. Right then, Chizuru meets her, and she narrates what just happened, calling Kenji weird. Meanwhile, Haru is lost in thought in a nearby park, and Kenji gets lost, ending up where Haru is. He then asks why Haru is hanging out there like a stalker, and Haru explains that he lost track of time while thinking. Just then, Kenji recalls what happened when they last saw each other, and he feels scared. Right then, Haru tells him to walk with him, and calls him a wuss when he sees that he's scared. While walking, Kenji recalls when they were kids, and how Haru followed him around. Over time, Haru became violent, and in middle school, he met Haru while his crew was bullying a random kid. He then tells Haru that he has changed, remembering how Haru used to beat him up in the past, and Haru replies that the person who changed him is Shizuku, and admits that he is afraid she will leave him. Kenji then gets into a taxi, and Haru warns him not to do anything to Shizuku. However, Kenji ignores the threat and leaves. It begins to rain, and Haru remembers how he went from being admired by his brother to being told that he wished Haru ended up in a condom. At that moment, Shizuku arrives and realizes that Haru has been waiting for her. She doesn't know how to react. He then admits that she's his hero and says she shows up at times when he needs her. Haru suddenly hugs her and tells her that he loves her and wants her all to himself. However, Shizuku tells him that it's impossible because her studies are also important to her. She wonders why they keep clashing and can never seem to be on the same page, but she's more worried that she doesn't have the answer to their problems. After this, Asako arrives at Masawa's store and she hesitates to head in. After a while, she enters the center to give something to Sohei, who is with his friends, and she talks with him. Just then, the group pushes one of them to practice his pickup line with her, while they tease him for liking her. She notices this, and seeing that everyone is making fun of him, she treats the dude like he's John Cena, ignoring him. As she walks away, Sohei catches up with her and explains that they didn't mean any harm. She tells him that she feels bad because guys always confess to her as a joke, and this makes other girls reject her. However, Sohei lets her know that she's in the wrong, and she explains that she's irritated because she barely gets to talk to Shizuku due to her cram classes. Haru has been in a bad mood these days, and she can barely talk to Masawa either, so he lets her know that it's because she's in love with him, making her face redder than a baboon's bottom, and she immediately begins to deny it until Haru walks in looking happy, causing them to ask him what happened. Haru happily explains that Shizuku proposed they go on a field trip the next year and promises to go anywhere he wants to go, but only if he leaves her alone until New Year's. This stuns them since they feel like she bribes him, and Asako asks if he's sure about it. Immediately, he says they can come too. Asako switches sides, and Sohei figures that Shizuku is forcing Haru to comply with her demands without tackling the main problem between them. The next day, classes end, and Shizuku tells Haru to enjoy the rest of the year, feeling surprised that her plan worked so easily. As she leaves, Haru happily sends her off, and Asako asks if he's okay with their deal since he won't see her till the next year. In response, he says he trusts her, and Asako can't understand how he has such blind faith in Shizuku. She then suggests a restaurant for them to try, and the two head there. After attaining 1,000,000 calories, Haru tells her that Misawa asked after her, and he asks why she hasn't dropped by the store in a while. As she realizes the reason, she becomes a human tomato, and Haru makes a horrible assumption as to why she hasn't been coming. After this, the two head their separate ways, and she feels sad that they won't see each other till New Year's. On New Year's Eve, Shizuku calls Asako to ask her how to program a TV recording, and after helping her, Asako takes the opportunity to tell her that she feels lonely. So, she ends up going to Shizuku's house, along with Haru, and Asako explains that she invited him. The three of them spend the night together, taking advantage of the fact that Shizuku's parents went to stay with her grandmother, and they eventually fall asleep. Later, they are awakened by a call from Sohei, and he invites them to the New Year's festival. When they arrive at the festival, they meet a huge crowd, and it is impossible to locate Sohei. At that moment, Kenji is hanging out with his crew, and they scold him for having a sharp mouth when he doesn't fight. Soon after, they get into a fight with another Group M, and Haru suddenly appears to fight those boys as well. Seeing this, Kenji realizes that Shizuku must be there too, since they're like conjoined twins, and he goes to look for her. After finding her, he tries to buy her something to eat, but she insists on paying for it herself, and Asako mocks him for trying to win her by acting cool. While walking around, they meet Chizuru, and after she introduces her to her friend, they all head to a stall to get their love fortunes. They all get terrible fortunes except Haru, and this freaks them out. Later on, Asako meets with Chizuru and notices that she's staring at Haru. She thinks it isn't right and asks her to fall in love with any other person but Haru. Although she understands she can't control how she feels, and Asako understands her as she thinks about Misawa. After a while, they run into Sohei, who is with his baseball teammates, and Misawa. Seeing Misawa, Asako freezes, and Shizuku wishes them a happy new year. Sohei then informs Misawa that they'll be using his roof, and Haru finds the key to the place. Misawa then warns him not to drive off the roof, and Shizuku is freaked out by this. Everyone decides to head up to the store's roof together to watch the sunrise, and Sohei is surprised that such a beautiful spot exists above the store. They joke around, laugh, and eagerly wait for the first rays of sunlight to appear over the horizon. Meanwhile, Misawa notices that the lights are on, but the Wi-Fi is off in Asako's head. Concerned about her, she decides to talk to her and gently asks what has been bothering her. Encouraged to open up, Asako begins talking to Misawa about everything that has happened recently. She admits that all her experiences have left her frustrated, and she even goes as far as to claim that she hates boys. Misawa calmly shares his thoughts and tells her that love is actually good for her. He explains that finding the right person can help her grow and better understand herself, despite the hardships that sometimes come with it. Asako quietly reflects on his words for a moment, before gathering the courage to hint at her feelings for him. However, Misawa does not react to her confession, and realizing she is not getting the reaction she hoped for, Asako decides to leave the conversation behind and go watch the sunrise with everyone else. Throughout their entire exchange, Sohei has secretly been listening to every word, and he approaches his friend to tell him that his plan has completely backfired. Meanwhile, Shizuku and Haru wait for dawn, and she panics that she can't see the sun after waiting all night for it. They then spot the sun rising behind a building, and Shizuku gets very technical about the exact time they call it a sunrise. After settling the issue, they watch the sunrise together, but Shizuku says she feels unsatisfied by it. One of their friends notes that it's his first time seeing the sunrise, and Sohei claims he sees it every year. Shizuku also admits that she hasn't seen a sunrise either, and as Sohei wants to ask if Asako has seen one, he realizes that she has already left. Meanwhile, Misawa feels old, like he was there when fire was invented, so he can't be excited about the sunrise. Haru then admits that the sun is huge, and he tells Shizuku that he's having so much fun with her. He proposes that next year they will watch the sunrise together again, and this puts a smile on her face. The festivities pass, and Shizuku spends the holidays studying alone at home since her father and brother are visiting her grandmother. She feels it's the best environment for her to study, but she keeps thinking about Haru since she hasn't seen him since New Year's Day. She then admits that she misses him and wonders what he's up to. At that moment, she hears him calling her name, and this scares the rap out of her. This makes her think she's in need of a psychiatrist, and suddenly, Haru appears at her window dressed like he's a swimmer at the Olympics. She then asks why he's there, and he says he is looking for something. She wants to know what he's looking for, but he doesn't explain what it is and says it ran away while he wasn't looking. She tries to calm him down, and he feels frustrated that he can't find what he's looking for. While Shizuku is confused by what's happening, he tells her he has to leave and warns that she'll be bigger than Mars if she keeps eating before leaving. Shizuku then wonders why he's in a hurry, and she notices that he left his cell phone behind. Haru then meets Asako while she's at a cafe and asks if she has seen it, but she doesn't understand what he means. He acts like the final boss of Mysterious and runs off, leaving his net behind. The same same thing happens with Sohei, who is playing baseball with his teammates, and after their conversation, Haru leaves his goggles with him. In the meantime, Shizuku gets a call on Haru's phone while she's studying, and she initially ignores it but decides to respond later. She finds that it's Sohei, and she explains that Haru left it with her while behaving like he's searching for Bigfoot. He then explains that a similar thing happened with him, and Shizuku feels that Haru is making a big deal about something that doesn't matter. At the end, Sohei decides to drop off Haru's stuff at his house, and advises Shizuku to do the same. At that moment, Kenji and his friends visit a member of their group who recently had surgery, and after a while of goofing around, Kenji decides to leave. One by one, everyone heads to the Misa Center to return Haru's belongings. First, Asako arrives and notices that Misawa isn't there, and soon after, Shizuku arrives. Even though she tries to convince Shizuku to hang out with her, she says she was in the middle of studying and drops the cell phone before immediately leaving. In the meantime, Kenji's friends take the surgery dude for a walk, and while they're out, they suddenly run into Haru. He then warns that Pumbaa from The Lion King is close by and rushes off again, but this time, he leaves his keys behind. Back at the store, Sohei arrives with his teammates, and they stay with Asako while they wait for Haru. That afternoon, Yu finds Nagoya, the rooster, and messages Chizuru, who calls to help guide her in bringing Nagoya to the Misa Center. Meanwhile, back at Shizuku's house, she wants to call Haru but decides to make some rice instead. She soon realizes she doesn't have any, so she heads out shopping, where she runs into Yu and Nagoya. Meanwhile, Sohei and his teammates are already leaving when they collide at the entrance with Kenji and his friends, who have come to return Haru's keys. In the end, Yu arrives at the Misa Center with Shizuku and Nagoya. Everyone decides to go look for Haru except Yu and Shizuku, who head back home instead. Along the way, Kenji gets lost, and Shizuku ends up helping him find the main road. The others continue searching the streets for Haru, encouraged by Asako, but they are forced to stop when the surgery boy's wound reopens. As Shizuku is walking home, she finally runs into Haru. She tells him that they already found Nagoya and that everyone is waiting for him at the store. However, Haru reveals that he wasn't looking for his rooster at all, and he was actually searching for a glowing bug. He explains that he spotted it that morning, but he lost track of it, and Shizuku doubts he saw it since they hardly appear in winter. Haru is sure that he saw it, and feels sad that he lost it since he wanted to see it again with Shizuku, believing it would be prettier if she were there with him. She then tells him that they are all worried about him, and they should get back to the others. He offers to help with what she's carrying, and puts his hat on her, claiming it looks good on her. In that moment, Shizuku feels that he's always having fun, but he feels distant from her sometimes. She feels that she can't handle his innocence, and they decide to head upstairs. A moment later, they finally spot the glowing bug. Shizuku says that it is the most beautiful thing she has ever seen, and she hopes that one day she will be able to be honest with Haru and finally express her true feelings for him. Don't think Shizuku will end up with Haru comment Nagoya if you watch this recap to the end. And if you enjoy anime recaps like this, subscribe to the channel and watch this next video.